Welcome, Stormers. This is to We Are the Storm Part 9, which is called Rachel's Action Plan. All copyright to Minister Casey on those fine words that are put next to each other. But yeah, Rachel's Action Plan. So, the government has an action plan, so now I thought I might like to make one too, and I thought you might like to hear about it. The plan is something I want to do. I'm just laying it out there for you, and if you pick up any of these parts of the plan, that's up to you. But this is what I'm going to do. So there is a Liberal majority of 3 seats. If you've been paying attention during all of my videos, I try not to mention the name of our Premier at all. The reason I did that on purpose, I want to encourage people to start calling out the other Liberal members of the government. He, the Premier, is not going to change his mind. If history shows us anything, he, in fact, will probably dig his heels in. But he can't do anything without the support of the other Liberal MLAs. So, they are just as responsible about what's happening as he is. Right now, each Liberal MLA is hoping that even if the public gets really angry about this, or the doctors or the nurses or whatever, that the public will blame the Premier because he is the leader. But nothing he does can be done without them. So let's pressure them. If we can convince 3 of them to change their minds and act against this legislation, or convince 3 of them to stand together to get him to pause, or convince 3 of them to be in the bathroom while the vote's being taken, whatever we can do to stop this, we should. I don't care how they do it, but to put pressure on them, we must start to refer to the Liberal government as a whole. Because any of them who vote for this legislation are responsible for it. So over the weekend, while I was out getting signatures, I had my computer with me and I was combing over all the statistics of the election in 2017. I wanted to find out who are the 10 most vulnerable Liberal MLAs. So here is a list. A top 10, so to speak, according to last year's election results. I'll do it the old David Letterman way and count backwards from 10 to 1. So number 10, Margaret Miller from Hants East. She won by 819 votes, but only 48.1% of eligible voters voted in this riding. So with higher engagement, 819 votes is not a lot. Number 9, Suzanne Lones Croft of Lunenburg. She won by 673 votes, but only 55.5% of the electorate voted in this riding. Number 8, Kevin Murphy of Eastern Shore. He won by 503 votes, but only 53.7% of eligible voters voted in his riding. Number 7, Karen Casey, Colchester North. She won by 429 votes, but only 54.6% of eligible voters voted in her riding. Number 6, Tony Ince, Cole Harbour, Portland Valley. He won by 380 votes, but only 54% of the electorate voted in his riding. Number 5, Jeff McClellan of Glace Bay. He won by 379 votes, but only 57.4% of the electorate voted in his riding. Number 4, Derek Mombourquette of Sydney Whitney Pier. He won by 160 votes, but only 52.6% of the eligible voters voted in his riding. Number 3, Hugh McKay, Chester St. Margaret's. He won by 91 votes. Only 57% of his eligible voters voted. Number 2, Lloyd Hines, Guysborough, Eastern Shore, Traquair. He won by 71 votes, with only 58.5% of the electorate voting in his riding. And number 1, Bill Horn, Waverley, Fall River, Beaverbank. He won by 65 votes, with only 55.5% of eligible voters voting in his riding. So those are the top 10. I think it's pretty clear to show that engagement is going to be important in the next election. So what can we do with that? Well, step 1 of my action plan. So step 1 of my action plan. I'm going to write and call each of these MLAs daily and ask them a specific question that I want an answer to. Each day I will post my Facebook, the MLA question of the day. I'll post it on my Facebook. I'll post the names, emails, and phone numbers of all of the MLAs on this list underneath my question. I will do that daily. I will do this every day until they stop or just publicly say they're pausing on this legislation to get more consultation. If they push this legislation through, I will do this every day to every MLA, even the ones that aren't in the Liberal Party, until the next election. That is a few hours out of my day each day for a couple of years. But it is a commitment that I'm willing to make for my children, my students, and for myself and my parents and all of my fellow Nova Scotians. So that's step 1. Step 2 of my action plan. The pen is mightier than the sword. So I'm not going to stop at the MLAs. What really upset me as I researched and as I've watched this government and others is that governments and politicians seem to ignore the citizens that stand against them, and they actively attempt to discredit and even silence their voices. Example being the shortened Law Amendments Committee session last year. That should have been an unlimited time, but instead they knew it was going to all be people that would talk against the legislation, so they cut it short. They don't find that it's a priority to listen to their citizens. So who are they listening to? Well, it seems they're listening to campaign donors and lobbying groups and think tanks. So step 2 of my action plan is to write the following people. I'm going to write to people that have donated to the Liberal campaign. For example, I'm going to write to Pete Luckett, Pete's Frutique, Luckett Winery. I'm going to write to Pete and explain my stance on this legislation, to let him know that I will not be visiting any of his stores or his winery or buying any of his wine until he agrees to talk to either Keith Irving or get him to pressure whoever he knows in the government to pause or shelve this legislation. He might not know this about me, but I do like wine, so this is a big threat. I will attach a copy of this letter and his email address once it's sent to my Facebook so that everyone can see that as well. I'm also going to write to Scott Bryson and to Prime Minister Trudeau. I'm writing to Scott to give him my perspective on this legislation and let him know that the Liberal Party of Nova Scotia is drifting from the Liberal ideas that I thought they stood for my whole life, growing up in the Trudeau the First era, you know. I will let him know that I will withdraw any support for the federal Liberals as well. you know, these students are in his riding too, in Scott's riding too. And I know it's very rare for a federal politician to get involved in provincial politics, and there's very good reasons for that. But I think Scott has kids, and he should be aware of what these changes mean. You know, I'll attach that letter and email address of both the Prime Minister and Scott Brison in the comments when I make that letter as well. If you're not in Scott's riding, you can also send to your Liberal MP that if you elected a Liberal MP in your riding, and write to him or her and tell them that you don't like what's going on. And post their addresses in the comments underneath my letter to, when I post my letter to the Prime Minister and Scott Brison. Oh, and you know what? So if you are a business that supports teachers in their stance, and write to me, and I will promote your business on my Facebook, and I will talk about your business in my videos. So, yeah. Another thing I want to write to is these ideas of large donor clubs. For the Liberals, it's the Angus L Club, which people pay $750 a year or $60 a month to join. According to the party's website, Angus L members get enhanced opportunities to meet with the leader, caucus members, and other special guests, as well as exclusive invitations to special events on a quarterly basis. The PC party also has a large donor club called the Leaders Club, where members pay $100 a month. I'm going to continue to investigate these large donor clubs. I really don't like the idea of them. It's very hard to figure out who is a member of it, and it's a way to kind of influence our politicians in a secret way. It's just not very transparent. And we need some transparency up in here. So I will continue to investigate that, and I will share with you what I find. Just for the record, the NDP does not have a large donor club, so good for you, NDP. And my final part of this step, of step 2, is about AIMS, the Atlantic Institute for Marketing Studies. According to their website, and I quote, research on education policy is centered on 2 major themes: increasing accountability in public educational institutions and providing information for parents and students about how well their schools are performing, and identifying and researching policy options that expand educational choices and remove the barriers that trap students in failing institutions. So I'm just going to pause there. So what they're saying is they're going to push standardized tests, make all those schools accountable, all on the results of those standardized tests. They're all about getting businesses in and business philosophies into schools. They see our children as commodities, and that's it. They will push the idea that, oh, we want better schools for our children, but let me be clear, they want better schools for certain children, because they know that putting this policy in, having schools compete against each other to get better marks on these standardized tests, is going to create haves and have-nots, and the gap's going to get bigger and bigger. Less middle class, just a huge gap between the poor and the rich. That is their goal. They go on to say parents and students deserve more than one educational choice. What they're saying there is you can choose to privatize, or you can choose to go to a charter school, or you can go to that public school that doesn't get good grades. That is not what our Canadian values of public education are based on. They're based on all of us, every Canadian citizen, paying taxes so that all of the children of Canada can get the best education possible. This institute is dangerous. The Institute's research program in the education and training policy file has not only elevated the discourse in a number of areas, but our AIMS pioneering research on evaluating the quality of education has helped to introduce more accountability and transparency in the region's elementary and secondary education systems. AIMS school report cards have been a focal point for our high-impact, policy-relevant research and commentary, end quote. And that is blah, blah, blah for a neoliberal agenda, which we've already gone over what that means. And I encourage you, again, if you didn't understand really what I was trying to say, because it's kind of complex, watch that video of neoliberalism as a water balloon. I found the image very easy to understand. So there are a lot of, I went on to the AIMS website and I looked up who are the people that donate to AIMS, who gives money to AIMS to fund their institute. And there's a lot of names on there. So I've chosen 5, and I encourage you to look up it's in their annual meeting report at the end. It shows their donors. I've chosen 5. I'll be writing to each of these 5 and letting them know that I'll be boycotting their products or their services. So I will be boycotting any Moosehead products because Andrew Oland is a contributor to AIMS. I will be boycotting any services of the Bank of Nova Scotia, and I will not be investing in their stock until they end contributing to AIMS. Eastlink, no cable, no cell phone, no internet money for you. And this one, I wasn't surprised really, but this one's going to be harder work for me. RBC, this is where I bank, and this is where my personal investments are, but I will be moving my investments from RBC. So banks hit me up, and I know the credit union works with the NSTU, so maybe I'll just move my stuff over to you. But yeah, hit me up. I'll be pulling my money from RBC until they stop donating to AIMS. Clearwater, no more lobster from you. From me. I'm not buying any more of your lobster. I'll buy them straight from the fishers off the boats from now on. And feel free to attach any of your ideas after you look at the donor list that you want me to try, or make suggestions, whatever you think, okay? Oh, and did you know that the first $1,000 you donate to a political campaign is eligible for 75% tax credit? That's unbelievable. Money given to campaigns are key to winning elections. In fact, studies show that the more money the campaign has a direct correlation to winning elections. When you donate to a charity or to your religious center of choice, you don't get that much money back. Why are political parties given this kind of perk? If people give more money, they can influence more decision makers. So the rich people that can contribute more in these ways are already rewarded with the influence they get. They do not need 75% back as far as I'm concerned. So part 3 of my action plan, I'm going to start to influence some policy. I decided. First step, you don't get 75% back of your political donation. So instead of going on a family vacation this year, sorry Tasha, Marley, and Lawson, I'm going to be donating $1,000 of my hard-earned money to the political party that agrees to have the most or all of the following 4 points added to their political platform next election. Point A. The Liberals are about centralizing health authorities and school boards. How about we look into having less MLAs? Did you know that there are 51 MLAs in Nova Scotia? Our population is 923,000. And we have an area of approximately 55,000 kilometers squared. So that's 1 MLA for every 18,098 people, or 1 MLA to 1,078 kilometers squared. Comparing to Ontario, as we should, since the Liberal government likes to do that, Ontario has 107 seats in their provincial assembly. They have a population of 13.6 million and have a landmass of 1.076 million kilometers square. That is 1 MLA for 127,103 people and 1 MLA for every 10,056 kilometers squared. So I say, if they're going to use Ontario information on education, we should use Ontario information on MLAs. If we use the same ratios using population, we only need 8 MLAs. And if we use area as our ratio, we only need 5.5 MLAs. Think of the money we will save. A balanced budget should always be the province's end goal, right? Point B. Did you know that Nova Scotia MLAs are eligible for their pensions after 2 years? Not many jobs out there like that. But worse, did you know that every dollar that they put into their pension, the Nova Scotia taxpayers pay $22? This costs the taxpayers $11.2 million every year. Their pensions cost the taxpayers $11.2 million every year. So I would propose in my point here that the pension plan should be legislated into being. For each dollar they contribute, the Nova Scotian taxpayers will contribute $1 as well to their fund. That is a lot more than most working Nova Scotians get, as they like to tell other people when they're trying to negotiate their pension plans or any other pay perk. The average MLA makes $103,000 a year. And did you know that MLAs that were fired for expense scandals are still receiving their pensions at almost $50,000 a year? I found that out from one report I read. I say if you break the House rules, you are no longer eligible for your pension. Point C, transfer payments, or an MLA service award. Now the Premier will say that he has eliminated these transfer payments, but he has only eliminated them for MLAs that have reached pension eligibility. Michael Sampson, for example, who lost in the last election, received a payout of $89,000. So I say, if working people of Nova Scotia are losing their service payouts, then so should the MLAs. Part D, big donor groups. They are used for rich people to garner influence with politicians. They need to be eliminated. There needs to be transparency in the donations that are made to political organizations, and these are not helping with that. So those are my four points. This is my attempt at influencing in a very public way to see if we can get some servants to the people into that house. Now, some of you might say, well, they have all those things, all those perks, in order to attract the best people to the job. And I say, shouldn't we be trying to attract the best people into teaching or nursing or doctoring or the film industry The best people, in my opinion, don't need money to motivate them. They need to be motivated by the will of the people and by, you know, a positive outlook in the future. So that's it. That's my plan, my action plan, and I hope you will create one of your own. I'm taking a break from these videos for a little while. Watch out for my posts daily of my question to the MLA. The teacher, I'll put it on my page, the teacher page, and the Parents for Teacher page. You know, feel free to create your own action plan, or feel free to join me, because together we are the storm. I hope to see you soon. Until then, bye-bye.